Welcome to your Health Facts. Today, we're going to be talking about something pretty interesting, I think. The connection between dopamine and sex drive.
Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
to really understand how dopamine influences your sex drive, you have to look at two main systems in the brain. The first is the excitatory system,
Okay.
and then you have the inhibitory system. You can kind of think of these systems as like a gas pedal and a brake for your desire.
Okay. Interesting.
So the excitatory system is driven by dopamine, and that kind of revs up your libido.
Right.
It enhances sexual performance.
Right. Makes sense.
And then on the flip side, the inhibitory system promotes those feelings of satiety and calmness.
Uh-huh.
So basically, it decreases your sex drive. So you got to have like a balance between these two systems for a fulfilling sex life.
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean. And so what are some things that can mess with this balance?
Yeah, good question. So um, one of the more common culprits, I guess you could say, is antidepressants.
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially SSRIs.
So they're effective for managing depression and anxiety, but they can sometimes dampen your libido.
So that's kind of a trade-off then, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's because they work by increasing serotonin, which
Hmm.
belongs to that inhibitory system we talked about.
Right, right.
So SSRIs can kind of negatively impact sexual desire and function for both men and women.
Okay, that's good to know. So we've been talking about dopamine, but what about other hormones like testosterone?
Yeah, testosterone is often thought of as like a male hormone,
Right.
but it plays a vital role in both genders when it comes to sexual health.
Hmm.
So elevated testosterone levels actually lead to increased dopamine production,
Oh, interesting.
which then boosts your sexual desire.
So it's kind of like a chain reaction.
Exactly. And testosterone is also important in nitric oxide synthesis.
Okay.
Nitric oxide is what facilitates blood flow to the penis and clitoris.
Right.
So that means stronger erections in men, for example.
So for someone wanting to improve their sexual well-being, I guess optimizing testosterone is a big thing then.
Yeah, I would say so. There are some natural ways to do that. Lifestyle changes like a good diet,
Right.
exercising regularly, getting enough sleep, and managing stress.
Okay.
All of those can contribute to healthy testosterone levels.
Makes sense. So you mentioned maximizing dopamine levels. How do we do that?
Well, there's a three-pronged approach, really. Increase production, minimize things that deplete it,
Mm-hmm.
and then enhance dopamine sensitivity at the receptor level.
Okay.
One practical way to boost dopamine is by incorporating the amino acid L-tyrosine into your diet.
Okay. Interesting.
So this amino acid's like a crucial building block for dopamine production.
Uh,
Typically, a good dosage is about 500 to 1,000 milligrams, 2 to 3 times a day,
okay.
and preferably on an empty stomach. Best to take it earlier in the day. It can give you an energy boost.
Right. Yeah.
You don't want that messing with your sleep.
Makes sense. What about other supplements? Anything
No.
to help?
Yeah, actually, velvet bean extract is a good one.
Okay.
It's got L-dopa in it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a precursor to dopamine.
Right.
It's been shown to really increase dopamine levels.
So how much of that would you recommend?
Standard dose is around 100 milligrams twice daily.
Okay. What else besides supplements, though?
Sleep, sleep, sleep.
Yeah.
That's honestly so important for optimizing dopamine production. When you get good sleep, your body can replenish its, stores of hormones and neurotransmitters.
Well, that's interesting.
Plus, it reduces stress hormones like cortisol.
Right, right. So how much sleep are we talking?
If you're relying on an alarm clock to wake up, you're probably not getting enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, waking up naturally is best.
Okay.
Means lower cortisol levels, which is good for your overall well-being and hormone balance.
Right, that makes sense. What about exercise? Does that impact dopamine?
Absolutely. It's another great strategy for boosting dopamine.
Mhm.
Aim for at least 3 to 5 times a week, doing activities you actually enjoy.
Yeah?
Lifting weights is especially good because it increases both testosterone and dopamine.
Oh, wow. So it's a double whammy.
Exactly. And when you exercise, you boost your confidence, which further elevates dopamine and contributes to a positive self-image.
Yeah, I can see that. And speaking of things that are good for you, what about sunlight?
Oh, yeah. Sunlight and vitamin D3 with K2. Those are crucial for maximizing dopamine.
Okay.
Vitamin D3 is actually a hormone.
Interesting.
It plays a big role in optimizing both testosterone and dopamine.
Gotcha.
Taking vitamin D3 with K2 just helps your body absorb and use it better.
Makes sense. So anything else we should be doing to boost dopamine?
Yeah, the last thing is managing stress effectively.
Yeah. stress is a killer.
It really is. High cortisol levels from chronic stress really negatively affect both testosterone and dopamine.
Yeah.
And chronic stress can even lead to receptor damage, which makes it hard for your body to use dopamine properly. Oh, wow. So how do we manage stress better?
Sleep is a huge one, like we talked about.
Yeah, right.
Also, try to minimize exposure to external stressors, like negative news or toxic people.
Right.
If you're going through a particularly stressful time, you might consider adaptogenic herbs.
Like what?
Ashwagandha, for example. It
Yeah.
can really help lower cortisol levels.
Okay. And so all of this leads to a better sex life, right?
Yeah, all these practical tips can really help boost dopamine naturally, which can lead to a more fulfilling and enjoyable sex life.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so let's dive a little deeper into the impact of these hormones, specifically on men.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Testosterone, as we mentioned, is super important for men's sexual health.
Right.
It fuels desire and promotes nitric oxide synthesis, which, like we talked about earlier, is essential for erections.
Right. Right. For those strong erections.
Exactly. So nitric oxide, it relaxes the blood vessels in the penis,
Uh-huh.
and that allows increased blood flow for, firmer and longer lasting erection. Okay. So by naturally increasing testosterone, men can really see a significant improvement in their erectile function.
Makes sense. Now, we talked about antidepressants earlier. What about their effects on men specifically?
Yeah, so it's important to note that antidepressants, particularly SSRIs, can have, some downsides when it comes to libido and sexual performance.
Right. Because they increase serotonin. Right.
Exactly. SSRIs boost serotonin levels in the brain. And while this can help manage depression and anxiety, it can also, unfortunately, suppress dopamine activity.
Oh, so it's like a seesaw almost?
Kinda, yeah. It's a delicate balance. And this suppression of dopamine can lead to, a decreased sex drive and even difficulty reaching orgasm.
Oh, wow. So that's something to be aware of.
Definitely. If you're experiencing these side effects, it's really important to talk to your doctor.
Yeah, that's good advice. They can maybe adjust the dosage or something.
Exactly. They might be able to suggest alternative medications or adjust your dosage to try and minimize those impacts on your sexual health. Okay, good to know. So, besides medication, are there natural ways to boost testosterone and dopamine for men?
Absolutely. There are a bunch of natural strategies that can make a big difference, and these can really improve libido and overall sexual satisfaction.
Sounds promising. What are some of them?
Well, first off, optimizing your lifestyle is key. A healthy diet is essential.
Okay. So what kind of foods are we talking about?
Think lean protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates. The good stuff.
Right, the building blocks.
Exactly. And then regular exercise, particularly strength training, is a major player in boosting testosterone.
So hitting the gym is good for more than just muscles.
You got it. And then, of course, quality sleep is non-negotiable.
Yeah, sleep is so important.
Really is. During sleep, your body replenishes its hormone stores, including testosterone. Aim for a solid 7 to 9 hours each night.
Wow, okay. Might need to work on that.
And finally, managing stress effectively is vital.
Stress, the enemy of everything.
Pretty much. Chronic stress elevates those cortisol levels, which can negatively impact both testosterone and dopamine.
Right, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So besides lifestyle changes, are there any specific supplements that can help men with testosterone and dopamine?
Yeah, there are a few. We already talked about L-tyrosine, the precursor to dopamine.
Right.
And then there's velvet bean extract, which has that L-dopa, directly boosting dopamine levels.
Okay.
There are also some herbs traditionally used to boost libido that can kind of indirectly support testosterone and dopamine.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Things like Tribulus terrestris, fenugreek, and ashwagandha.
Okay. Those sound familiar?
Yeah, they're pretty common. But always remember, supplements should be an addition to a healthy lifestyle, not a replacement.
Right. Good point. And it's probably always best to talk to your doctor before starting any new supplements, too.
Definitely. Always a good idea. Okay, so now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the ladies. Hormones and neurotransmitters work a little differently in women. So testosterone, while often associated with men, actually plays a big role in women's sexual health as well.
Really? I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, it's more important than a lot of people realize.
Okay.
So testosterone contributes to libido, arousal, and just overall sexual satisfaction in women.
Interesting. So it affects dopamine in women, too, then?
Yep, it influences dopamine production, which further enhances sexual desire and pleasure. And similar to men, women can experience a decline in testosterone levels as they age, or due to stress or some medical conditions.
And I'm guessing that leads to a lower libido.
Exactly. And also decreased sexual responsiveness.
That makes sense. So are there ways for women to naturally optimize their testosterone levels too?
For sure. A balanced diet, regular exercise, and managing stress can all have a positive impact on hormonal balance in women.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've talked about testosterone. What about estrogen?
Right, estrogen. So it's the primary female sex hormone, and it plays a pretty complex role in sexual function.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's definitely important for vaginal lubrication and overall genital health. But when it comes to libido, it's a bit more nuanced.
Okay,
Optimal estrogen levels are essential for healthy sexual function, that's for sure.
right.
But both high and low levels can actually negatively impact libido.
Oh, wow. So it's all about finding that sweet spot, I guess.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance. And on top of that, estrogen influences dopamine sensitivity in certain parts of the brain.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's modulating those sexual desire and reward pathways.
Okay.
And because of that, fluctuations in estrogen levels, like during the menstrual cycle or menopause, can really affect a woman's sexual experience.
Right. It all makes sense now. So to sum it up, how does dopamine impact sexual satisfaction in women specifically?
Well, remember how we called dopamine the feel-good neurotransmitter?
Yeah, I remember.
So it plays this crucial role in the female sexual response cycle.
Uh-huh.
It's released in large amounts during pleasurable experiences, including sex. And that creates a sense of reward and satisfaction that reinforces the desire for future sexual encounters.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
Right.
But as we've been discussing, stress, hormonal imbalances, and certain medications can mess with that.
Right.
They can interfere with dopamine production and signaling, which can then lead to a decreased libido and difficulty experiencing pleasure.
So basically, understanding how dopamine, testosterone, and estrogen all work together is key for women's sexual health.
Absolutely. It's crucial for addressing any challenges and optimizing overall sexual well-being.
Okay, I'm with you. And last but not least, let's talk about lifestyle choices and their impact on dopamine and sexual health in women.
Right. So certain lifestyle factors can significantly influence dopamine production and sensitivity, which, like we've talked about, can affect libido and sexual function.
Right.
Chronic stress, as we've discussed, is a big one. It depletes dopamine and increases cortisol, which negatively impacts desire. Poor sleep quality also disrupts hormone balance, including dopamine production, making it harder to function sexually.
Right, we know how important sleep is.
Yeah, it really can't be overstated. And then there's alcohol.
Oh, right. Alcohol can mess with things.
Yeah, drinking too much can interfere with dopamine signaling,
Mm.
and that can lead to a decreased libido and difficulty achieving orgasm.
Oh, wow. So moderation is key.
Definitely. And lastly, diet plays a big role. A diet high in processed foods and sugar contributes to inflammation and oxidative stress.
And that's bad for dopamine.
Yeah. It negatively impacts dopamine production. But on the flip side, a healthy lifestyle that prioritizes stress management, good sleep, moderate alcohol consumption, and a nutrient-rich diet can really support those optimal dopamine levels.
And that leads to a better sex life.
Improve sexual well-being, more fulfilling experiences. It all comes down to taking care of yourself.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's all connected. Hormones, neurotransmitters, lifestyle.
Exactly. It's fascinating, isn't it? So, we've talked a lot about dopamine and sexual satisfaction in women. Let's dig a little deeper into that connection.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so dopamine, right? That's the feel-good neurotransmitter. And it plays this super important role in the female sexual response cycle.
Right.
It's released a lot during those pleasurable experiences, and that includes, sexual activity.
Okay.
So this release then creates a sense of reward and satisfaction, which reinforces the desire for more, for future intimate encounters.
Makes sense. So what can mess with this process?
Well, a lot of things, honestly. We've talked about stress, right?
Yeah, stress is a big one.
It is. Chronic stress drains your dopamine levels and pumps up that cortisol, the stress hormone.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately, that can really have a negative impact on desire.
Right. And then there's sleep, or rather lack of sleep.
Exactly. Poor sleep quality messes with your hormone balance, including dopamine production,
Yeah.
which, as we know, is not good for sexual function.
Okay, so we've got stress, sleep. What else?
Alcohol. Too much alcohol can actually interfere with dopamine signaling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it can lead to a lower libido and difficulty reaching orgasm.
That's not good.
Nope. And then, of course, there's diet. Eating a lot of processed foods and sugar, well, that contributes to inflammation and oxidative
And
stress.
that affects dopamine.
Yeah, it negatively impacts dopamine production.
So it sounds like a healthy lifestyle is really key here.
It really is, managing stress, getting enough sleep, drinking in moderation, and eating a nutrient-rich diet. All of that can really support healthy dopamine levels.
And that leads to,
A better sex life, more fulfilling experiences, greater sexual well-being. It all comes down to taking care of yourself.
right, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's all connected. Hormones, neurotransmitters, lifestyle.
Yep, exactly. It's all part of the big picture.
Wow. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. I've learned a lot about dopamine and its impact on sex drive.
Me too. It's
Yeah.
always fascinating to explore these connections.
Absolutely. And I'm sure our listeners will find this information valuable as well. If you want to delve even deeper into this topic and other health insights, be sure to visit our website at yourhealthfacts.com.